Hey, I'm Kara Stern. I'm the host of Snack Size PD, a professional development series for over Zoom teachers and principals. And today's topic is supporting students during COVID. My guest for today is Barbara Kiss. Barbara works for a nonprofit mental health agency which provides school-based counseling to middle and high school students in Brooklyn Public Schools. Barbara, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Kara. I really appreciate it. This is a great opportunity.
It's my pleasure. All right, so here's what I want to do. I want to suggest a scenario for us, okay? Let's pretend that you're at a restaurant, if we can remember what it's like to be at a restaurant, and you're having dinner with a friend, and you're just talking generally about like your work and what you're seeing with kids, these days. And all of a sudden you feel like a tap on your shoulder and someone says like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm a teacher. Could I ask you some advice? Does that sound good?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to play the role of the teacher. Okay. Okay. All right. Excuse me. I couldn't help overhearing that you're a counselor. Would you mind if I just asked you a few quick questions? I'm so sorry to bother you when you're having dinner, but I really need some advice. Would that be okay?
Of course, no worries at all. I completely understand.
All right, thank you so much. So here's what's going on. So as you know, my students have experienced so much disruption over the past year, and I know that it's important to give them a sense of consistency, but I can't figure out if it's better to stick with like business as usual, or if I should adjust my expectations, like because we're living in really hard times. What do you think?
Well, you're raising a really good point. And I would say that we have to adjust expectations. All of us have to adjust expectations because things are just so unprecedented. It's just not realistic to think that we can carry on as business as usual. So teachers have an enormous toolbox of things that they can use, that they do use to reach out to students. And so it's maybe stretching that a little bit more even, and doing whatever you can to connect with students.
Okay, well, speaking of connecting with students, I have this one student who's really checked out. He never comes to class. Like if he does, he like tilts his phone or his Chromebook so that I can't really see him, and he never participates. And I've tried to schedule one-on-one time with him, but he keeps canceling, and I'm worried, but I'm also frustrated. Like, what should I do?
That's a very, it's a difficult situation. First of all, hats off to teachers. Teachers are doing an amazing job, and it really can't be overestimated what teachers have had to do, pull themselves in a million directions. Teachers are people too, counselors are people too, and to have students repeatedly not attend Zoom classes, not turn on their cameras or audio, it's enormously challenging. And I think it's important to keep in mind why this might be the case, and why is it that that student is not reaching out. Kids' sleep schedules are topsy-turvy. A lot of them, not all of them, but many of them are sleeping through the day, staying up all night till 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, sleeping through their Zoom classes. Some students are not doing any work. Some students are working independently. So when a student is checked out, which happens obviously frequently to some students and less so to other students, it's important to think about why that might be the case. I guess I would just sort of offer a reminder, every child is different. Every student is different. What they are going through is different. COVID has really inflicted a lot of isolation on children, students, young people, and that has taken its toll, as we know, as we've heard from them, as we've heard from their parents. It's very, very difficult. A child who their only independence might have been taking the train or the bus to school, traveling to school, being in their classes, hanging out with their friends for a little while after school. They've lost that, and parents are necessarily, understandably, feeling very protective of children in these COVID times, but let's realize what that might mean for a child and their sense of discouragement or their sense of frustration, and sort of be cognizant of that, and keep trying. If a child doesn't respond back today, maybe they will tomorrow. Excuse me, tomorrow. And I think it's also important to not chastise the student once they pop back up, rather than, why is it, I haven't seen you on Zoom, where have you been, what's been going on? Take a little bit of a gentler approach, and perhaps ask them about things outside of academics, things that you know that they're interested in. That's one idea of maintaining the connection, reconnecting, and trying to get them to connect again more frequently.
Okay, you gave me a lot of really good advice, and those are things that I had not thought about. So thank you. So I have one last question and I will stop bugging you. Obviously, we don't have a counselor at my school, or I wouldn't be harassing you over your dinner. So I'm just wondering, like, in addition to the things you've said, is there like one thing I could do, or my principal could do to help students, make sure that they feel like there's someone at our school that they can talk to?
I would say, in terms of teachers, it maybe comes back to the relationship between teachers and students. And teachers have to respect boundaries. They have to respect their own boundaries with children and with students. But at this time, maybe it warrants like a little bit more familiarity, and sort of, as I was saying before, think about the ways in which you might be able to connect to a student outside of academia, their academic classes. And you want your student to pass their classes, obviously, and to maintain their academic performance. But is it a movie that they might have seen? Is there a video? Is there a dance performance? Is there a layup or a sports game that they might be interested in talking about, that might allow for a little bit more of familiarity, and for them to perhaps take you into their confidence a little bit more? So that's one idea. Also, I would just say, slightly, just as a side note, be cautious and just aware of communication. And this is not only on teachers and counselors. Having multiple teachers reach out to a family, to a student or a parent, can be very challenging and can put a lot of pressure on students and be very frustrating for parents. So obviously, this is not always in the control of teachers and guidance counselors, but to whatever degree, communicate with each other, coordinate, have a little plan, so that you all understand how you're going, what the timeline is, and how you're all going about reaching out to the families, the students, and the parents. And then that'll just make it more effective for everybody.
Well, that is the end of our scene, and that was amazing. So helpful. Thank you so much, Barbara. Wow.
You're so welcome, Kara. I hope that was helpful, and it's never a bother. Come up anytime in a restaurant, never a bother at all.
Well, thank you. It was really great. And thank you to anybody who's watching, and please like us and subscribe and tune in again. And if you have expertise like Barbara of your own that you would like to share, please feel free to leave me a note in the comments. And I'm going to say goodbye and good teaching.